You rotten backstabbing worm. Harold's voice cracked like dry timber, his gnarled hands trembling as he clawed at the car door. The stench of antiseptic wafted from the back seat, a smell that clung to nursing homes, to endings. The car swerved onto a gravel road. Harold's chest tightened. His throat burned with memories, the orphanage's cold porridge. Harold's cane clattered as he stumbled out. Before him stood a dilapidated farmhouse. Daniel stepped closer, face unreadable. You never told me why you adopted me. He'd vowed then, this one I'll protect. You're not my real dad, and vanished for days. Harold had wept into his whiskey. Daniel finally spoke, voice low. You recognize it? The place where he'd waited 3 days. You kept me trapped here. In your misery. A crow cawed. Harold's heart splintered. Daniel turned toward the farmhouse. The walls, once stained, were now pristine. The photo was faded at the edges. He collapsed into the rocking chair. October 12, 1998. The doctor said, stage 4. Daniel reached into his coat, pulling out a small velvet box. On the counter sat a vintage radio, tuned to a static lace station playing Patsy Cline's I Fall to Pieces. Clara's song. She loved you, Daniel said from the doorway. Even when she pretended not to. Especially then. Harold braced himself against the fridge, new stainless steel humming softly. Inside he found a 6-pack of Schlitz, his cheap beer of choice, and a Tupperware of beef stew labeled 4H in Clara's handwriting. She cooked for me. The realization shattered him. He sank to the floor, clutching the stew to his chest like a child. Daniel knelt beside him, peeling back the lid. The scent of thyme and carrots flooded Harold's senses. Her recipe. The same one she'd thrown at the wall during their last fight, screaming he'd never amount to more than a janitor. She learned to cook this after the diagnosis, Daniel murmured. Said she wanted to leave you something real. I froze it, waited for the right time. Harold's voice was a broken thing. Why now? Daniel opened a drawer, revealing stacks of envelopes bound with twine. Harold's name adorned each one, addresses scratched out, stamped return to sender in angry red ink. Because you stopped running. Outside, the clouds split, sunlight spearing through the kitchen window. It illuminated a corner Harold hadn't yet noticed. A repaired music box sitting on a shelf, its lacquered wood gleaming. Daniel wound it gently. A tinkling melody filled the room, Clair de Lune. Harold remembered. He'd salvaged that music box from a dumpster when Daniel was 8, its gears rusted, melody dead. Broken, the boy had said. Not unfixable, Harold had countered. They'd spent weeks restoring it, only for Clara to smash it during her final visit. Sentimental trash, she'd hissed. Now, as the music swelled, Daniel whispered, You taught me broken doesn't mean worthless. Harold's tears fell freely now, dripping into the stew. He tasted salt, grief and something else, hope, bitter and sweet. Daniel pressed a key into his hand, its teeth sharp. The house is yours. But it's not just a house. From the hallway, a door creaked open. Harold turned. A bedroom, his childhood bedroom, stood transformed. The stained mattress was gone, replaced by a sturdy oak bed. On the walls hung framed photos. Harold and Daniel fishing at Cedar Lake, Harold receiving his janitorial service award, Daniel's college graduation. But the largest frame held a collage of receipts, pawnshop tickets, payday loans, pharmacy slips, all stamped paid in full. You thought I didn't see? Daniel's voice trembled. The nights you skipped meals? The blood on your hands from double shifts? You gave me everything, except the truth. Harold traced a receipt dated 2003, $500 sent to Clara's hospice fund, anonymous. He'd stolen overtime for that. She didn't die alone, Daniel said. I was there. Held her hand. She made me promise to bring you home. The word home detonated in Harold's chest. This place, this shrine to his pain and love, was not a prison. It was a bridge. Daniel unfolded a document, the deed, with Harold's name bolded as owner. Stay. Let me show you, you're not who they said you were. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are just lost souls holding mirrors to our own unhealed wounds. The truth, now unearthed, isn't a cure, it's a scalpel. And Harold's hands, though aged and trembling, are finally steady enough to wield it. The key in Harold's palm felt heavier than iron, colder than the winters he'd spent sleeping in his janitor's closet. But when Daniel stepped back, sunlight streaming through the farmhouse's rebuilt windows, Harold realized the weight wasn't the key, it was the decades of stories he'd let others write for him. Come outside, Daniel said softly, nodding toward the porch. Harold hesitated. The last time he'd stood on that porch, he'd been 6 years old, watching taillights vanish down a dirt road. Now, the wood beneath his feet was sanded smooth, the railing sturdy. Beyond it, the overgrown fields of his childhood had been cleared, replaced by wildflowers swaying in the breeze. A path of river stones led to a wooden bench beneath an ancient oak, the same tree he'd hidden behind as a boy, waiting for a mother who never returned. But today the bench was new. Carved into its armrest was a single word: redemption. Daniel handed Harold a thermos of coffee, black, 2 sugars, just how he'd always drank it. The steam curled into the dawn air as Harold sat, the bench creaking beneath him. For a long moment, they listened to the birdsong, the hum of cicadas, the distant ripple of a creek he'd forgotten existed. "You rebuilt the well," Harold murmured, spotting the stone structure near the tree line. "Had to," Daniel said. "Took me 3 summers. The water's clean now." Harold sipped the coffee. It tasted like ash. Or maybe that was the residue of his own regrets. Why go through all this? Daniel reached into his pocket, pulling out a folded photograph. Harold recognized it instantly. The 2 of them at Daniel's high school graduation, Harold's suit 2 sizes too big, borrowed from a thrift store. Daniel's smile was bright, but Harold's eyes, God, his eyes, were hollow, already braced for loss. "Because you never believed you deserved it," Daniel said. "Not the house. Not Clara. Not even me." The accusation hung in the air, sharp and true. Harold's throat tightened. He wanted to argue, to list every sacrifice, every sleepless night, but the receipts framed in the bedroom screamed louder. He'd been the one to build walls, not Daniel. A breeze stirred the wildflowers, carrying the faintest note of vanilla. Clara's ghost or his guilt? Harold wasn't sure anymore. "The nursing home," Daniel continued, "was a lie. I bought the cabin next door instead. 2 bedrooms. Porch facing the sunrise." He paused. "If you'll stay." Harold's grip tightened on the thermos. "Stay." The word felt foreign, dangerous. Staying meant believing this wasn't a dream, that the floorboards wouldn't rot again, that Daniel wouldn't wake up one day and see him for what he was, a broken old man. But then Daniel did something he hadn't done since he was a child. He reached for Harold's hand. His fingers, calloused and warm, closed over Harold's trembling ones. "You think I didn't know?" Daniel's voice broke. "That you slept in your truck the week I brought Sarah home for Thanksgiving? That you sold your blood to pay for my wedding suit?" He gestured to the fields. "You spent your life digging graves for your pain. Let me help you climb out." Harold's breath hitched. Somewhere in the distance, the music box's Claire de Lune began to play again, carried by the wind, or maybe it was just the ache in his chest, finally softening. He stood abruptly, cane forgotten, and walked toward the oak tree. Kneeling, he brushed away dead leaves until his fingers struck metal. A time capsule buried when Daniel was 12, a coffee tin filled with scribbled notes. Harold pried it open. "Dad," read the top letter in a child's scrawl, "when I grow up, I'm gonna buy you a castle. With a throne. Because you're my king." Harold's sob echoed across the fields. When he turned, Daniel was beside him, tears streaking his own face. "You were never just a janitor," Daniel whispered. "You were the whole damn kingdom." Daniel's betrayal was a meticulously crafted ruse. The legal papers Harold saw? Forged to trigger his deepest fear, abandonment, so he'd finally confront it. The drive to the farmhouse, the nursing home lie, even the staged argument were all steps in Daniel's plan to dismantle Harold's walls. Clara's ring, the hospice receipts, the restored house. Daniel had spent years gathering the fragments of Harold's shattered past to show him. Your pain wasn't wasted. Your love wasn't invisible. We are not defined by the wounds others carve into us, but by the hands that choose to suture them, even if those hands are our own. As the sun climbed, Harold stood at the edge of the field, the deed in one hand, Clara's ring in the other. He slipped the band onto his pinky where it glinted like a promise. In the distance, the cabin's windows glowed amber. Daniel was already inside frying eggs, burnt the way Harold liked them. The old man inhaled, the air sweet with clover and redemption, and whispered to the wind, "I'm staying." Years later, townsfolk would tell stories about the old man and his son, how they turned the derelict farm into a shelter for foster kids, its walls echoing with laughter instead of ghosts. Harold's toolbox, now displayed in the entryway, bore a new inscription, "For the broken and brave." And on the porch bench, beneath redemption, visitors would find 2 mugs of cold coffee, a rusted wrench, and a music box that never stopped playing.